Well, welcome to our show today, and we're really excited about a special guest we have with us today. And the title of our show is How to Bless Others, Become an Angel. And that title actually came from our guest. Here about 2 months ago, I had the opportunity to visit him and watched him in a meeting. He had a packed house, and he talked about how in the Bible the word angel was defined in the Greek as a messenger. And so today we're going to find out a little bit about how he is a messenger of health and hope to literally thousands and thousands of people all over the world. And I'd like to introduce our guest today. His name is Dr. Reg McDaniel. His staff was kind enough to give me your information, and it runs 18 pages, but I'm just going to get some of the highlights. Dr. Reg McDaniel is a graduate of the University of Texas Southwestern Medical School and has spent 20 years practicing anatomical and clinical pathology. In 1981, he began research at Fisher Institute for Medical Research. In 1985, he added the work of scientists that had isolated the active principle of the aloe vera plant and conducted the first government-monitored studies in human beings using this glyconutrient, aloe polymannan. And I must tell you also that he has 34 major papers that have been published. He's the holder of over 20 patents. He's literally spoken all over the world. He's spoken before the United States Congress, the UN, and the Royal Medical Society. And Dr. Reg, I'm also told that you write poetry and you sing. So it's so good to have you here today.
Thank you, Bob. It's good to be here.
Well, I want to start right off here. I've got a quote from a major metropolitan newspaper, and they quoted you as saying that you think outside the box. And with your prestigious background and credentials, it seems you've always been kind of an independent thinker. Could you kind of share with us, where has that taken you in your medical career?
In 1981, when I started the Fisher Institute for Medical Research, we found out that the modality that we got into, nutrition, optimizing it, micronutrients, putting back into the diet molecules that are no longer common, sometimes missing from our modern diet, do more for children than any other group. And the younger that you can get them started, the better it works, because it's under the control of our genes, which is instructions of normal structure and function for cellular biochemistry and synthesis. And our cells use nutrients just like a automobile plant uses parts to synthesize vehicles. And all we've done is return to the diet what we were originally designed for in the beginning.
Tell us about sugars that heal. That's a pretty bold statement.
Yes, and one day my telephone rang, and a somewhat foreign voice introduced himself and said that he was in his exam room, and he had a child, a little boy in his practice, that for 4 or 5 years had had 40 or 50 episodes of otitis media, or middle ear infections. That this had progressed, he didn't respond to antibiotics, he didn't respond to tubes in his ears, and now he had a multi-drug resistance, and the parents were constantly in. He cried all night, what can you do next? And he exhausted everything. He said over the phone that all of a sudden the mother wasn't bringing the little boy in. Yes. And he knew that meningitis could be a complication, and maybe they'd gone to another doctor. If he had found something that worked, he wanted to find out.
Sure.
And so he asked his staff to call, and the mother says, oh, he doesn't have the problem anymore. And they reported it to him, and he said, well, bring that child in. I want to see his ears. And he told me that the child was in the exam room as we were speaking. It was the first time he had ever seen his ears normal, and found out he had been taking our children's formulation that contains primarily the missing sugar from the aloe plant, plus other sugars required for cellular synthesis to make interferons, interleukins, other defense molecules that our body makes as natural defense. I said, Dr. Mandoa, do you have 5 or 6 patients you hate to see come through the door because you've exhausted everything like middle ear infections. He said, well, certainly everybody has one or has a group like this.
Group like that, sure.
And I said, if I sent you a case of these, would you give it to these children and see what happens? He says, I will. So I put it together, shipped it to him. In a few months, my phone rings, and I hear a very distinctive voice, and he begins to tell me who he is, and I says, Dr. Mandoa, I know who you are. I said, did you give a children's formulation to those children? He said, yes, that's why I'm calling you. I said, what happened? He says, they all got well, and that he had a change in philosophy of how to manage disease.
You know, as we talked about Dr. Mandoa and the results he got from these sugars, we've put together some stories of people who have gotten similar results. And we'd like for you to look at these stories and comment on them if you would. The first one is from a lady named Sherry Hawkins who lives in Texas, and we've got a video for you to look at here.
Hi, my name's Sherry Hawkins. I went in this past year for a regular hysterectomy. The doctor said that they found a tumor that was growing on my uterus. They were concerned about it. They didn't think really much of it. They thought it was a benign fibroid. And so I went in and had a hysterectomy. They took my uterus out. In the process, they chopped up that tumor and extracted it. They irrigated my abdomen, but they extracted it. They first came in and said everything's great. And then they came right back in and said, we've got bad news. They looked at the slides and they said, we took a sample of your tumor and you've got a cancer called myxoid leiomyosarcoma. So I was then sent down to the sarcoma unit, and when I saw that doctor, that was a really tough day. He gave me very bad news. He said I was stage 3 going to 4. The tumor was 15 centimeters. A mitotic rate of 10 is pretty much a death sentence. And that mitotic rate is how fast your cancer is moving and growing and spreading in your body. The slices on my tumor were 30, 50, and 70. So it was very bad. And I asked him what he could do for me. He said he was going to try the hardest chemos, very aggressive chemo for an entire year. He basically leaned forward at one point and said, I am guessing about this treatment because the cancer is so rare. And we're just going to keep trying chemos till we find one that'll work. And I said, what is your cure rate on this cancer? Because he's actually seen this cancer. It was a very rare cancer. He kind of had a tear in his eye and he leaned forward and he said, I've never seen anybody survive it. I went into shock. The whole room was spinning. My ears were ringing. I really went into shock. And my husband, bless his heart, said, I don't feel like starting the chemo right now. Let's go pray about this. So we left. We went back to San Antonio, and that was a very dark day. To realize you basically got a death sentence and you're not going to live, and I had 3 children to raise. I wanted to live. And someone introduced us to the glyconutritional products. We were so desperate. We did our research on it. We were just excited about what it was doing for your body, so I got on them right away. Well, I took a lot. I hyperdosed on these products, and we turned down medical treatment. So we never did the chemo, we never did the radiation. I have a brother who's a doctor who did a lot of research on my particular cancer, and he called me and said this kind of cancer doesn't respond well to chemo or radiation, so I was going to be dead if I did or dead if I didn't. And it's been since last May. This has been now a little over a year. 2 months ago I got a complete body CT scan and the cancer's gone. It's not there. It is gone, and I'm totally better. It's wonderful. I've got my life back. I'm a mom and a wife. I can live again. I've got a life, and I've got a lot of life to live. And I'm just so excited about what's happened and what God's done.
Dr. Reg, here's a lady who was given a death sentence, and a year later she's cancer-free. How can you explain that?
We have collected a number of these patients, and we've centered on sarcomas, because just as Sherry Hawkins had been told, that not just any cancer center, one of the most prestigious and respected on the planet, that they had never seen anyone respond. Well, hers is only about a year, but we have several other sarcomas that they can't detect them more than 5 years later. We also have reported on pancreatic cancers that at the time of diagnosis, The usual survival expectancy is somewhere between 6 months and a year. We have one approaching 11 years that at diagnosis had liver metastasis. They've taken huge amounts of these glyconutrients. We also in our series have high-grade astrocytomas of the brain, also called glioblastoma multiformes. The reason we chose those is because at diagnosis, if you can't totally excise them, the expected survival is 6 to 12 months. We have them 5 years and more. And I've asked some heads of neurosurgery at prestigious institutions where I would be lecturing, how many glioblastoma multiformes do you have in your career that have survived 5 years with partial resection? And they kind of look at me strange and say, well, not any. And I said, well, would you like to see the records of 5? And I had another one just this last week walk up that I had never heard of, telling me that her doctors at one of the Eastern medical schools would like to talk to me, that they've never had a patient with this brain tumor survive 5 years, and she looked like the picture of health. And they had not been able to totally remove it, but now they can't find it. So it's a lot of fun to be able to work with patients and with other scientists that have contributed, each bring in a little part to the answer. And it's amazing that nutrition that supports the mechanisms that were endowed in the engineering and design in our DNA at the creation, and we have handed down through generations after generations, that we're just supporting the information and instructions there through nutrition to do what you have just seen here for this beautiful young lady in San Antonio, Texas.
It's just amazing, Dr. Reg. I mean, you're thinking outside the box. But we've got some more here. I'd like to put up on the screen a child that you've had some direct experience with. Could you tell us about this young person?
Well, I was in what I call a death march to get things that have to be done before I get on the airplane to go speak. And someone said that a couple was waiting in the lobby to see me, and I went out, and here was this young mother in her early 20s and father not over 30. And one look on their faces, I knew nothing I had to do was more important than the burden on their heart. And in the next few minutes, they told me they were in death and dying support therapy for parents, that their little daughter that you see here was dying of autoimmune hemorrhagic enteritis. Most people know about autoantibodies against the joints for rheumatoid arthritis or other tissues for lupus or against the thyroid for hypothyroidism. She was making antibodies against her GI tract, and all she had was pain and bloody movements, and they were prepared for her to die. She's all bloated from high doses of prednisone, which were ineffective. They wanted to know if these supplements, and you could tell by the look in their eye and their tone of their voice, somebody had sent them and they didn't believe it because they had been given no hope.
Yes.
But I says, I feel confident from all our experience that this is food. We're really not even treating your daughter. We're giving her substances that the body needs, that her defense system got turned on from probably a virus or bacterial infection, and the mechanisms that have to go through biochemically to turn it down and bring it back to rest did not work. And there's the potential that we can provide in here these things that are missing from the modern diet, that she can run those programs in her genes to put her immune system back to sleep or rest where it should be. And they left, and I got on my plane, and I forgot her for months. And then one day, they came to my office again.
I think we have a slide of that.
Yes. And there's that darling little girl again. And they told me that she had no symptoms, that she was off of all medications, and they say she's going to live.
Well, Dr. Reg, could you share with us exactly what are glyconutrients and how do they work?
Well, glyco is a Greek word that means sweet or sugar. We're more familiar with saccharous from the Latin for sweet or sugar. And our body is made up of molecules that are synthesized by our cells, and very few of them are pure protein or pure fat. You have the sugars hooked to the chains of amino acids that make up the glycoproteins, and the sugars hooked to fatty acids that make up the glycolipids. And they are part of the structure and function of all our membranes and the structure of our cells. Actually, the sugars stick out in long chains all over the surface of our cells, much like shag carpet, that are the receptors that take things into the cells and take things out of the cell that are waste products, but are also read by the immune system that say exactly who we are, and that our own cells are different from the surface of, say, bacteria, yeast, fungus, or malignant cells. And that's what guides the immune system of what to protect and defend and what to attack and destroy. And when they're absent, the immune system cannot interpret accurately as well as respond appropriately when they're missing. For example, in our genes or the DNA or nucleic acids, the code of life is written in the instructions for building a human body, operating it, defending it, regenerating, keeping things in balance. But at the cellular level, written in sugars is a secondary code that actually carries out and is interpreted by the immune system and is the effector activity at the cellular level. And actually, the latest research shows that there's more information written in sugars to carry out life processes that are endowed in the genes than there's actually even written in the genes, because it's spread out through the trillions of cells. At the cellular level, between cells, communication is written in sugars hooked to proteins and fats.
We've got a film clip here of a fellow by the name of George Taylor, who for years just suffered horrible allergies. Let's take a look at that and get your thoughts on it.
Hi, my name is George Taylor. I've pretty much been healthy all of my life up until about 5 years ago, when I began to experience severe allergy symptoms. I would sneeze uncontrollably up to 20 times, my nose would bleed, had infections, turned into bronchitis, even strep throat. I tried treating all of this with homeopathy, with herbs, and finally I gave in and went to see an allergist. And for about a year she treated me with some minor relief, but not to my satisfaction, and really made little effect at all. A month after that, I was in a meeting where I was sneezing uncontrollably, and a new acquaintance noticed that and offered me glyconutrients. To my amazement, within 3 hours, I had stopped sneezing. And I asked her more about it and began a regimen of taking a full array of glyconutrients. And within 3 months, all of my allergy symptoms had pretty much disappeared. And during the year that I was taking them, I only experienced 2 weeks of minor allergy symptoms. Subsequent to that, I just got kind of tired of taking product, forgot about it, and realized that I was off of them, and began to experience these allergy symptoms again. And quickly I got back on them, and to my amazement, they just started going away again. Probably for the rest of my life, I intend to take glyconutrients to make me feel better. My quality of life has improved as a result, and I think that it's doing lots of other positive things for my health.
Dr. Reg, here's a fellow who says allergies, asthma, just, boy, that's so common.
I'm very much aware how almost incapacitating hay fever or tear-provoking allergies or sneezing And another one that is just terrible to the people that have it is asthma. Dr. Candace, my wife, who's a physician, and I have a daughter, Rosie, that was the alpha case in the worst asthma. It would take me a good while to tell you just how bad her asthma was. She lived grade school in the library. She couldn't even go to PE. She might get a cold wind across her and she'd turn blue-green. You could hear her breathing all over the place. She had nearly died in the ICU several times from asthma. Ended going up, despite her mother being well-trained and having all the equipment, having once a month or so, having to go to the emergency room or doctor's office for help to try to bring her under control. And when I say she nearly died, I mean it, because with all the treatment, all their heart rate gets up 160, 200 and stays there. And that's why they die, from sheer exhaustion of their heart beating too fast and can't get back to rest. She came through Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center and saw some of our scientific posters that we had presented at scientific meetings. And when I say she, Dr. Candace, and she went back to Tulsa, Oklahoma with the idea this might help Rosie, because nothing else was.
It was helping her.
And she started the original glyconutrient from the aloe plant, and now it's been over 15 years. Since that day, she has continued, and she has not been in a doctor's office, emergency room, and certainly not ICU since that time, and has gone through a pregnancy. And she feels like not only the sugars, but the missing nutrients from the fruits and vegetables contribute significantly to bringing her system into balance. And of course that led to finding other patients, and then a pilot study that was done at Loma Linda School of Medicine in their pediatric department, then up in Michigan, a double-blind placebo, and we are further along in asthma than any other condition.
We've been talking about adults and children with catastrophic illnesses, but we've got a film clip for you to take a look at about a lady, her name is Pam Redmond, who thought she was perfectly healthy. And the only reason she decided to try these glyconutrients, she had a history of cancer in her family, and she just wanted to, she was a pharmaceutical sales rep, or is a pharmaceutical sales rep, and wanted to do a little preventative maintenance, if you will. Let's take a look and see what she says.
Hi, my name is Pam Redmond, and I was introduced to glyconutritionals from a friend who was battling cancer. And as I looked at that information, I was pretty blown away, because I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for 15 years. And I was just very impressed with the science behind it and the continuing education courses that are presented to physicians. And so I thought I would look into it a little bit more. I considered myself very healthy, so I didn't think I really needed them, but I started developing some female issues, PMS. I don't need to name the symptoms involved there, but I also started developing some other problems that was inhibiting my lifestyle. And so I went to the doctor to get a checkup, and basically did a pelvic ultrasound. And I was informed that I had fibroids and cysts and all kinds of things like that. And she basically told me I needed to get on the birth control pill to regulate my hormones. I literally thought I was going through menopause or something. I didn't know what was going on. And so I started on the glyconutritional products, including the phytosterols. And after about, I would say about a month and a half, I noticed a complete change. I was regular again. I felt different. I fell asleep on my own, which I had always kind of had trouble with that. My PMS went totally away, and I was amazed, so I started telling everybody about it. And as well as when I would get my hair cut, my hairdresser would point out, gosh, what are you doing? Your hair is just growing in spurts all over the place. And people would even come over and look at my scalp, and it was just growing in all around my face. And so I was very thrilled with that, because I'd complained over the years, since in my 20s, that my hair was basically falling out and getting thinner, and I didn't know why. And so here, this product was not only making my hair grow back, it was much thicker, and all this happened within the first couple of months. Well, over time, I started noticing things like I had developed arthritis in one of my fingers, and I kept a watch on it, and I would check check it out from time to time, and gradually it went away. It took about 7 months probably. But also I had bursitis in my hip that when I worked out, I noticed that I would limp, or when I'd sit too long I'd get up and I would be very stiff and it would hurt. Well, that's also gone away. As well as I had, thought I was healthy, but I had a condition also called plantar fasciitis, and I don't know if a lot of you know what that is, but basically it's a very painful foot problem. And that is also gone. I just noticed that recently after about 8 months of being on the product. So I had a lot, here I was a healthy person, but my lifestyle was inhibited because of some of these issues. And therefore, I decided, I'm going to use these products as basically like an insurance policy to prevent cancer, to get rid of these little ailments that people tend to just want to live with. I didn't want to live with them. So I look forward to seeing what else is going to change in my life, and I just want to be the picture of health. So I'm staying on them the rest of my life.
Well, Dr. Reg, here, a person healthy, they start taking them and it begins to affect them in all areas of their life.
Isn't it amazing that all the cells of the body respond to improved nutrition?
Yes.
Now, some of the things that you were seeing there, I'd like to make a point that we have had this type of thing happen repeatedly in studies, because in this, a counselor reports on 21 families with children with autism. And not only do they have improvement in their autism, but they have a grid here, a box of side effects. And shall we say, if she took those products to make her hair thicker, or I think it was to prevent cancer in a cancer family, yes. And she tells you all these things. Well, in these children, there was a 64% relief of allergies as a side effect. Asthma, 100% relief of symptoms. Ear infections, 40%, sinus problems, 67%, rashes and skin problems, 83% clearance, chronic diarrhea, 100%, chronic constipation, 90%. I sit here proud of these side effects, like you just got through hearing from that beautiful young lady that has been selling pharmaceuticals for 15 years.
Well, there you go, thinking outside the box again. Well, Dr. Reg, we've got just a couple of more studies or situations that I'd like for us to take a look at. Tell us about this young child.
Well, this is Bianca from Canada, and she was born with a gene defect called Sturge-Weber syndrome. The distribution of the facial nerve, they're abnormal capillary blood vessels. As you look at that, you can imagine the difficulties this little girl could have trying to go to grade school and beyond. But I was contacted by her mother because she was desperate. Bianca was having about 10 seizures an hour, 24 hours a day, and she wanted to know if this could help, and I said, well, we have heard of other children and adults with seizures when nothing has worked, that the phytochemicals and the glyconutrients have been of help. She was calling 2 and 3 times a day, and about the third day I found out I was in the middle of a major conflict, and they had set a date in a few weeks to remove the left side of Bianca's brain to stop these seizures.
Oh my goodness.
And in about a month, the father took Bianca to the hospital, and then her neurosurgeon refused to do the operation. He said, we don't do this for children that are having 1 seizure a day.
My goodness.
And that's where we'd gotten her. Recently, I got a follow-up that she's gone now 3 years without a seizure. But in those pictures, we have, not only is she taking it internally, but we have it in topical gel. And she's had laser treatments, and instead of getting scarring and puckering and distortion of the skin, she has gotten and continues to get an incredibly good cosmetic effect. But even better than that, I am told that they have never had a Sturge-Weber syndrome child develop intellectually, coordination-wise, socially, as Bianca has developed.
Children seem to be your heart, and we've got a little girl, Lindsay. Tell us about this little girl. That just breaks my heart.
Well, she had, again, I had made mention of the children with the rashes and all. Our skin is one of our biggest, if not the biggest organ, one of the biggest organs in our body, and it's very complex, and it's a layer of defense. And most of us know certain chemicals can cause allergies and hypersensitivities and blisters and infections. And she had a skin condition that medicine has a hard time dealing with, and that you get irritation and fluid, then you get secondary infection. And her ability to go to school and be in public was, because this was all over her body and her arms,
Yes.
and she may have had a degree of atopy, which is a complex allergy responding to almost anything that you get itching, redness, scratching, weeping, and then infections. So in the wonder of wonders, by improving her diet, what is out of balance that causes the original triggering of the irritation of the skin followed by the infections? The next photograph shows you on the right there, her back in the whirl, feeling good about herself, enjoying life, and also we have pictures of her arms and back that before were just like the worst places on her left forehead there, and it's all gone.
Well, she had this condition, Dr. Reg, for 10 years, and it's my understanding after only 8 months of these glyconutrients that this transformation took place. Is that normal? Is that...
Well, that's not the usual history. They continue this. Sometimes, particularly children, when they get to puberty, there's a shift in the biochemistry. Sometimes it gets worse. Sometimes it goes away, just like asthma. And of course, if it doesn't, the asthma or such skin problems, it's major problems. And socially, developmentally, going to school, being able to study, concentrate. I'm sure it affects your personality and outlook on life.
Oh, would have to.
And so there's many dimensions that good health and being able to bring a person back within the normal zone that our genes are programmed to provide us with.
And just with the addition of these glyconutrients.
Well, our body needs these molecules that are in fruits and vegetables, and it seems like in fruits and vegetables, our skin really needs some of the trace micronutrients that plant-matured fruits and vegetables contain.
Well, we have one more slide for you to look at. Someone you know, Cameron. Could you tell us a little bit about Cameron here?
Well, Cameron was born with a little red place under the chin. At birth, it just looked like something that would go away, and when the parents were concerned about it, my understanding, they were told, oh, that'll go away, but it didn't go away. And it became a lymphangioma that began to spread. If you were to look at it under the microscope, it would be distended lymphatics and capillaries, and you can see this huge mass from one ear to the other. And this continued to the point that it doesn't show there very well. They had to do a tracheostomy because it was occluding and compressing the trachea. They tried on Cameron all the drugs that you give for malignancy, and nothing did any good. Then I guess someone somewhere heard of the crazy doctor from Texas going through saying, try this, it works, it's food, won't hurt you, it's what your body was designed for. The science of this is to open your mouth and swallow. In 21 days, after adding the missing nutrients on the left, you see that combined with our therapy that was not working, looks like a normal child.
Yes.
Now we have the report that a lot of times when you have to have a tracheostomy like this in a child like this, you get a lot of problems from the stenosis and scarring of the tracheal invasion there. But my understanding is that all of this is reversed and has stayed reversed, and it would have been a tragic thing if they would had to have gone in surgically, because most people are aware that women that have a breast surgery, extensive, sometimes they get lymphedema of the right arm, and their arm gets so heavy and big that they can hardly move it because the fluids cannot get back and travel to the right side of the heart and get back into the serum phase. And to surgically go in the neck in here, it could easily, the upper half of the head become edematous like this, and it's marvelous that you could avoid surgery trying to remove this excess tissue. And to me, it's amazing that by giving the cells what they need for control of growth and development, that it can go back to normal.
Yes, in 21 days.
21 days.
Dr. Reg, heart disease, #1 killer in America. Any experience with glyconutrients with heart disease?
Well, an awful lot. Down in Florida, one of the first ones, you always remember those that had bypass surgery and serial angioplasties to help the angina. All of a sudden he got on these dietary supplements and he quit having angina. And after over a year, his cardiologist got real nervous and said, we need to see what's going on in there. And they reported to me that his original blood vessels plus his bypass were virtually free of calcium deposits and narrowing. What in the world could be going on? And that led to what is our current real emphasis, that we found out that adult stem cells from our own bone marrow migrate in and regenerate damaged organs and tissues. Now, when I first had to deal with what it appeared was going on, that was kind of hard to swallow, I've got to tell you.
Well, sure, because it's so controversial. Dr. Reg, diabetes is at epic proportion in this country today. And I'd like for us to look at the monitor. We have a man by the name of Bob Stovall who has enjoyed wonderful benefits from these glyconutrients.
I was fortunate to have a Bachelor of Science in biology and math, and the theory of glyconutrients made a lot of sense to me. I'm a firm believer that if you give the body the right support, it is designed that the body will heal itself. In October of 2003, I literally thought I was fixing to be going into a wheelchair because my diabetic neuropathy had progressed to the point where I would literally count steps before I would go do something. I would outline what I was going to do. I would make sure that I had everything I needed so I didn't have to make any extra steps, because I was in that much pain. Could not wear shoes. If I wanted to get into my car, I'd wear my shoes to my car, take them off, and I would drive with cruise control. I really couldn't even drive the car with my feet. My hands, if I wanted to stretch my fingers out like that, I would literally cry. My hands were like this. I could not pick anything up. So anyway, I was visiting with this young lady that got me involved with the glyconutrients as far as taking them. Started taking it on a regular basis, and literally within 7 days my feet had improved 80%. My hands, I would say, improved about 95%. Almost all the pain or discomfort was gone from my hands. I could walk, did not have near the pain, still was very uncomfortable, but it improved so much it was like a new life to me. I could wear shoes again, and started taking the product real regular from that point on. Did not degress any. When I was going through my diabetic neuropathy, besides my feet, my hands, if I wanted to pick an object up, because my hands were like this, and I would have to go past it, pick it up, and then come back. could not reach out and grab something, could not fully extend my hands. They were like this most of the time or all the time. And my feet improved about 75 to 80% of that 20% that was left. Since then, I've stayed on the product on a real regular basis. It allows me to work 50 hours a week, very active. I go sailing at least 40, 45 weeks out of the year. Try to go at least 1 to 2 days a week. It was literally terrifying to me to think that I was going into a wheelchair and give up my lifestyle. And glyconutrients have changed my life. They worked. I'll be on them for the rest of my life as far as I'm concerned.
We've had so many people with heart damage, kidney damage, damage to the retina from diabetes, damage to the kidneys from diabetes that have had major return and loss function. And it gets a little technical to go into all the new papers that are coming out that show this is a process, and now we know that through the glyconutrients that in the peripheral blood, you can do flow cytometry, that there are literally trillions of these adult stem cells, your own, that come into circulation. And there is an animal that a researcher at the University of Missouri told me they were studying to figure out how the salamander can regrow a new leg, a new tail, replace its eye, cut the spinal cord, and it can regenerate it. And they found out that in the salamander, their adult stem cells come into circulation in huge numbers, migrate in just like in an embryo in the early stages of development, but here it's an adult, and differentiate and regenerate damaged tissue. Apparently, this is what's happening. And the phenomenal thing is that when you use stem cells from any other source, whether donor adult or from an embryo, on the surface of those cells you have the antigenic signature of that individual or the individual that would have come into being. And our immune system recognizes it as foreign and attacks it. When it's your own, you don't do that. And also, when you use embryonal stem cells, like the gentleman that went to China, had Parkinsonism, he paid for it, and they went in and they injected embryonal stem cells into the area of a degenerated area of his brain. And if you remember, there was media that it was the end of American science, that China was taking over and we're falling behind.
Falling behind, yes.
But you probably didn't hear that in about a year the man fell dead.
No.
And they autopsied him and found out those embryonic cells just took off growing and not only repaired the area but made layers of disorganized embryo in his brain and killed him. It's called a tumor, a teratomatous tumor, all the layers of an embryo. Because all the cells in our body are under incredible, even though we have trillions of cells, incredible control. Just like our thyroid gland with thyroxine determines the rate of metabolism of all our cells. From our pancreas, our insulin determines the rate of sugar transport across membranes. Our hormones determine what goes in, what goes out of certain cells and give us confirmation and have influence through many cells in our body. All our cells are under control, and when you take embryonic cells from another person, inject them in the tissue, they're outside the coordinated control and organization of our body. And this is done at a cost of $25 to $50 a week for dietary supplements. Not the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, nor the need to continue to take immune suppression drugs to keep you from rejecting such cells. So that's not only the heart, but other organs that we're seeing incredible regeneration all the way to reversing damage from aging.
Well, Dr. Reg, I can't believe that our time is almost up, and it has been such a pleasure to have you here in the studios with us. And I just have one more question for you. with all your academic achievements, with your credentials, with your success, almost 42 years in the medical profession, your staff told me that you are the most passionate person in your organization, that you're there working, talking about helping and spreading this good news. My question is, after all you've accomplished, why?
Well, one reason that maybe I appear to be so busy is I only got one life to live. And I was 49 when this started, and just a few weeks ago I was 69. And frankly, my father was killed in World War II. And when they brought him back and put him in the military cemetery in San Antonio, I was about 12 years old. And I had recently read about in Shintoism from Japan, something similar to the story in the Christian Bible about the talents. And in Shintoism it says there's a Kao, K-A-O I believe it's pronounced,
Yes.
that the gift of life, you get a debt, that your life is to be spent to pay for this gift that you've been given by the Creator. And at my father's, because he was killed when he was 32 in World War II, I took a pledge to earn his co and mine too. And hopefully before it's over, I will have repaid his debt to the Creator and mine too.
Well, Dr. Reg, I think you've already done it, but I think there's more to do. We started the show talking about how to bless others, become an angel. We've heard that the word angel is a messenger, and we've certainly heard a message here today, glyconutrients, sugars that heal. And we want to thank Dr. Reg, and as we always say at the end of our programs, if you've heard anything here today that might benefit someone you know, be sure to pass it on.